All right, today we are diving into something that sits right at the crossroads of gaming, crypto, and VR. It's a new project called QBALL, and it's built on a pretty bold claim. It's a token you can only earn through pure, measurable skill in a virtual reality game. So let's see how they plan to pull that off.
But let's start with a big idea. Just think about it for a second. What if all those countless hours you poured into mastering a game actually created something real? Something with tangible value that sticks around, way beyond just getting to the top of a leaderboard. That's the core promise we're going to unpack today.
Now, I know what you might be thinking, especially if you've been around the crypto block. The whole play-to-earn concept, well, it has a bit of a reputation, doesn't it? And honestly, for some pretty good reasons. A lot of the early models just had some massive fundamental flaws. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you have the old way. Tokens that inflate into oblivion, games that are totally overrun by bots, systems that just reward you for how much time you can mindlessly grind, and at the end of the day, you're left holding a token with zero real-world use. The QBALL project is basically saying, okay, we see those problems, and they're trying to build something that directly tackles every single one of them.
So, first question, how do you actually get this token? Well, it all starts with a game. And we're not talking about some simple clicker game. This is built from the ground up to be a test of actual physical skill inside a VR headset.
The game itself is called VR Billiards. It's a really cool concept. Imagine you're playing pool, lining up your shots with all that precision, but your score is calculated like a game of bowling. You're trying to get strikes and spares. It's this unique hybrid that's all about precision, strategy, and control.
And getting started is designed to be super simple. You just connect your Solana wallet, play a standard 10-frame game, and then all the complicated stuff happens in the background. Their servers analyze your game data to make sure it was legit, no cheating, and if everything checks out, boom, the tokens you earned based on your score get minted and sent right to your wallet.
Okay, but let's be real. A fun game is one thing, but that's not enough to build a stable economy. The real secret sauce, what they hope separates this from everything else, is the economics behind it. It's all about the math and a concept called scarcity.
First things first, that number, 21 million. That is the absolute, hard-coded maximum supply of $QBALL that can ever exist. And what's really key here is what the caption says, no pre-mine. No bag for the team, no allocation for early investors. Every single token has to be brought into existence the exact same way, by someone playing the game and scoring points.
So how do those 21 million tokens get created? This is where it gets really clever. They're not using a simple halving like Bitcoin. They're using what's called an asymptotic minting curve. The best way to think about it is Zeno's paradox. You know the one? You can keep walking halfway to a wall, but you never actually touch it. It's the same idea here. The total supply gets closer and closer to 21 million forever, but the rewards get smaller and smaller, so it never technically hits that ceiling.
And this chart really makes that clear. Let's look at the numbers. At the very beginning, if you bowl a perfect 300-point game, you get 300 QBALL. Simple. But once half the supply is out there, that's 10.5 million tokens, that same perfect game now only gets you 150 QBALL. Fast forward to when we're getting really close to the cap, and a perfect game might only earn you just over one single token. The reward is constantly, smoothly decreasing.
So, what's the result of all this math? Well, a few really important things. First, there's a massive advantage to being an early player. Second, you can technically earn tokens forever. It just gets harder and harder. Every single token that gets created makes the next one just a tiny bit more difficult to earn. And maybe the most important part? This entire formula is locked into a smart contract that can never be changed. The rules are the rules, permanently.
Okay, so you've put in the work, you've mastered the game, you've earned some of these increasingly scarce tokens. What's the point? What can you actually do with them? That brings us to the other half of the ecosystem, the utility, the marketplace.
And we're not talking about just buying virtual hats or skins. The vision here is a full-on marketplace where you can buy and sell actual physical stuff, electronics, clothes, collectibles, you name it. And the only way to pay for any of it is with QBALL. This is how they plan to bridge the gap from a score in a game to actual real-world purchasing power. Now, every transaction on this marketplace has a tiny 2% fee. 1% goes to keep the lights on, for operations, but it's that other 1% that's so critical. It gets sent directly to what's called a burn address.
And that's the kicker. Burning a token means it's gone forever. It's sent to a wallet that no one has the keys to, so it's permanently removed from circulation. So you have this dynamic where playing the game creates new tokens, but using the marketplace actually destroys them.
The more popular the marketplace becomes, the more the total supply of $QBALL starts to shrink.
Of course, an economy based entirely on skill is worthless if people can just cheat. It absolutely has to be protected from bots, hackers, and exploits. So the next logical question is, how do they keep it all fair? Well, the first line of defense is actually super simple, but really effective. To have your score validated for rewards, your wallet has to be holding a tiny amount of SOL, which is Solana's main crypto. We're talking like a couple of bucks worth. Now, you never spend that SOL, it just has to sit there. But that small requirement makes it insanely expensive for someone to try and create thousands of bot wallets to cheat the system.
But that's just the front door. Behind the scenes, they're running every single game through a serious validation pipeline. They're not just taking your word for the score. They're analyzing the game's physics, making sure you're using real VR hardware, and even using heuristics to analyze player behavior to see if it looks human. It's a whole stack of security measures designed to protect the integrity of every single score.
So, putting all these pieces together, what's the big picture plan? Where is this all supposed to go in the long run? For that, we can take a look at the project's roadmap.
It looks like they're planning a phased rollout. They'll start by building and testing the core systems on Solana's developer network in early 2026. From there, they're aiming for a public beta with real, live rewards, then a full launch on the main network, which is when the marketplace beta is slated to kick off. And beyond that, it's all about growing the ecosystem.
This slide really pulls it all together. It's designed to be a self-reinforcing loop, what they call a flywheel. It starts with skill. Skillful play creates new tokens. Those tokens get their value from being used in the marketplace. The marketplace activity then burns tokens, which increases their scarcity. And that increased scarcity, in theory, makes the rewards for being a skillful player even more valuable. And the wheel keeps spinning.
And that brings us all the way back to that first question we asked, but maybe with a bit more context now. Projects like this are basically a grand experiment. They're trying to forge a direct, unbreakable link between human ability and real digital value. So the final question really isn't just about a single game or a token. It's about what happens when we can finally, truly put a price on skill itself.